Welcome back to the beautiful lobby of the Hotel Orloff here in scenic Rural Retreat, Virginia. Once again, it is July the 12th, 2023. And as always, when it's July 12th, 2023, we like to look at some vintage comic books, ladies and gentlemen. I would have been on earlier, but there was a violent thunderstorm. Lots of branches broke all over the neighborhood. We didn't have power for a few hours. Sitting here watching the FBI director, Ray, is about to be interrogated by the House Committee. So that's my entertainment for this morning. That and looking at some vintage comic books. I pulled two boxes from the A's in the Silver Age section of the comic book vault upstairs. I thought we'd look at those. Yesterday I did kind of an unfocused episode where I had the camera turned around the other way and I was just showing stuff. And I lost 2 subscribers. That used to hurt my feelings. Now I think I'm doing something right if I'm losing subscribers, because obviously these are people that don't need to be watching. If they, I don't know. They're obviously not people that are would ever be a friend of mine. So I just like to have friends as subscribers, and that's great. So when you order my new classic TV series that I've been creating, I already have 32 episodes of Tomb of Terror. When you order that from PayPal at Kenneth Weinert, KENNETHWEINERT, $20 for each episode postpaid, unless you order 4 or more, in which case they're $16 each. And and toddy walnuts, I made. Are you wanting me to make 4 discs and then just wait until you get a chance to send enough, or do you want me to send the 2 and then start the discount with the next? Anyway, contact me and let me know how, if you want them sent out right now, and then start the discount with the next batch. Anyway, I guess I don't have your number, so I can't call you. But anyway, so and I don't like texting because I can't see the little letters. Anyway, so yes, we lost some subscribers. That's great. I was trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers by Sunday. I don't think that's going to happen. Oh well, because it took me 4 years to get to wherever I'm at. What am I at? 500? What is it? 500 something? Anyway, I think it's 574. Yeah, that took me 4 years. And July 16th is going to be the big 4-year anniversary party of the Hotel Orloff on YouTube. Or should I do it Saturday night? Friday I'm going to a demolition derby, hopefully, if it doesn't rain again. And what did I have planned Saturday? Oh, there's a Donald Trump speech I've got to watch. But after that, I could probably have a big anniversary party. All right, well, let's see. Let's look at these. These used to be sent in the mail to people. See that? These used to be sent in the mail. And what it is, it's tells you what's going to be playing at the local movie theater. And it doesn't have the year, but we could probably tell. I got my magnifying glass upstairs. We can probably tell by the movies. Let's see if there's any movies that. How many of these movies have you seen? I was looking for horror films, but I don't see any here. I'm guessing this is mid to late 50s. Let's see about this one here.
Today's FBI leaders reflect the best of our organization. An organization that's made up of 38,000 men and women who are patriots.
Okay, let's see. What movies are fantastic on this one? The Egyptian. Oh, there's a Disney cartoon festival. How about that? I speak constantly with local chiefs and sheriffs from all 50 Man, I'll tell you, the Disney cartoons had wonderful animation, but other than those early black and white Mickey Mouse cartoons, the Disney cartoons were never funny. Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, all the color ones, Pluto. It's better to read them in comic book form, those characters, because the movies, because if you're used to Warner Brothers cartoons where they're actually funny, they're not funny. Animation's great. This theater is going to be playing A Sound of Freedom in a couple of weeks. Anyway, fantastic. All right, you're here to see something else, possibly? All right, well, let's look at some comics. Let's start with this box. All right, so we're midway through Adventure Comics. Superboy would fly into the future and hang out with these teenage superheroes in the future.
Just last month, as you know, former Special Counsel John Durham sat right in that seat and testified that the Justice Department and the FBI should never...
There's the original Karate Kid. When that Karate Kid movie came out in 1984, in the credits they had to acknowledge DC Comics because they had already used the name Karate Kid. And trust me, I know that because I was working in a movie theater in the summer of 1984 when that movie came out, and I saw the credits rolling a million times as I was cleaning up people's cups and popcorn boxes from, we'd have to go in as the credits, as soon as everyone left and the credits were still rolling, we'd go in and clean up. And the worst thing are those cowboys that dip snuff, right? And they keep their cup and they spit into it for the whole movie, their tobacco. That's pretty nauseating. When you find one of those cups on the floor of the theater. That was the summer. I heard someone on YouTube all nostalgic about the summer of 1984. I thought that summer was kind of disappointing. Now the Legion of Superheroes and Adventure Comics, the earlier books, earlier 60s to mid 60s were better. This is great, but the earlier ones were better, which are in another box that I'm not showing you right now. This is issue 349. Okay, yes, so there was Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, a great movie. There was Raiders of the Lost Ark, a great movie. And then the summer of '84, there's going to be a sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. There's going to be a sequel, a new Star Trek. So it was like, it's going to be a great summer, and I'm working in a movie theater. It's going to be great. But then the Raiders of the Lost Ark sequel was not as good. It had this horrible screaming blonde woman throughout the movie that was in it because she was the girlfriend of Spielberg at the time. And the Star Trek 3 was okay, but it wasn't as good as Star Trek 2. What were the highlights of the summer of '84? There was Ghostbusters was great. Yeah. Another disappointment was the sequel to Conan the Destroyer. It was a watered-down, PG-rated sequel. That was the disappointment. What else came out that summer? There was a Prince movie, Purple Rain, that came out. When that came out, the theater turned into a nightclub because everyone showed up in their finest, like they were going to a nightclub, and that was That was pretty interesting, the Prince movie. What else played that summer? I think Sheena, which was disappointing because I was aware of the Sheena character. I read reprints of the fiction, I guess another copy of the same issue. I'd read reprints of the Fiction House Sheena, and I think actually by the summer of '84 I'd actually gotten an actual few real Fiction House Sheena comics that I'd managed to find. And I thought, that's not Sheena. She doesn't wear the, she's not wearing the right outfit. And I don't know. She was alright. Everything was disappointing about that summer. The summer of '81, I think that was that was the great summer. I'm trying to remember when the things came out. The Road Warrior was great. And then the sequel, that was the next summer, the sequel to the third in that series came out, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. I didn't like that. It was really in the '80s, the mid-'80s, everything started to get bad, including comic books. When they destroyed all of this, all the wonder of the '60s and '50s DC comics, that Crisis on Infinite Earths, they just wiped the slate clean. Anyway, I don't know if you want me to do more episodes like that last one or not. This Nadler is just one of the most despicable human beings I've ever seen. This comic was so great. It's just so great. Everything's great about it. 356. I don't have a complete run of these '60s adventure comics. I got as many as I could back in the '80s when I was buying these, and every once in a while I'll run across one now and I'll try to add to the collection.
I think there were steps along those lines, yes, sir. You name a couple of them? Well, among other things, we did not...
Oh, I need to warn you. I've been, just the last few episodes, my wife and I were trying to catch up with this TV series on Amazon Prime called The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And it's a series my wife loves. I thought it was pretty great. The lady that plays Mrs. Maisel is very charismatic. She's been cast as Lois Lane in this new Superman movie that's coming out in a couple of years from James Gunn. I think that's great casting. The main problem I've always had with the show, it had great production values. It looked like it was the late 50s, 1960 it is now in the series. All that was great. The set design, the period detail. The problem is she's supposed to be this funny comedian, and she's never once been funny. She's never made me laugh. She's really not funny at all. But I accepted that. That was just something that, it's like I accepted that. But we get to the fourth season, and trust me, the fourth season, what is the cliche? It jumped to the shark, because Happy Days, remember, you may not remember, the first season of Happy Days was great. It was, they would go out, it was actually shot on film. They'd go outside, there were old cars, it was great. It was like watching a movie. And then Fonzie became more popular, and they made him more the main character than the main character, Richie Cunningham. And that was all right, but then it went, I think it was the third season maybe, where they started shooting with a live audience and with videotape, and everything had to be indoors because they couldn't do outdoor scenes anymore, and it got really bad. And then maybe the fourth season, because Jaws had been popular a few years before, they had this big, exciting two-part episode where Fonzie was going to jump on skis over like a live shark, and everyone said, this is where the series finally got really bad and unwatchable, when Fonzie jumped the shark. And now that's become like an internet jargon, jumping the shark when something starts to get bad. And I can't get into here why it's bad in the fourth season. If you're watching it, and I feel bad because some people have told me, I heard you talking about Miss Maisel, like Meyer Greenblatt. He started watching the first season. It's really great. Yeah, it's really great. But when you get to the fourth season, just remember I warned you. Maybe you shouldn't. And maybe you should stop. Pretend the series ended with the end of the third season, and then all will be well. I don't know. Maybe it'll redeem itself. I don't see how it can turn back from what it's done. It's like different people have taken over. It's and if I tell you why it's bad, it's just not something I want to do right now. Just trust me. Oh, another thing. A couple of days ago, there's all these pictures of Hugh Jackman out in a somewhat comic accurate Wolverine costume, right? It's yellow and blue. It's got the, the spiky looking paint and everything. It's not exactly like the comic. He's not wearing the helmet, the cowl, whatever. But, we're thinking, well, maybe it's going to be really great, because there's footage now this morning of them doing stunt wire work where Wolverine's throwing Deadpool around, kind of like the cover of Hulk 181 where he's fighting the Hulk. And he's wearing the yellow and blue outfit. And you think, well, man, this could be great. The first two Deadpool movies. Although I've never read a Deadpool comic, I knew nothing about the character, hardly anything before I saw the movie, except it's kind of he breaks the fourth wall and all that stuff. And, but now, you think, well, it's Disney, they're going to mess it up. Now Disney owns it, and Disney didn't own the 20th Century Fox properties when they, because X-Men, all the X-Men characters were optioned out to 20th Century Fox, and then Disney bought that, and Fox, and now they can put Wolverine in the movie. Okay, so it looks great, and then you realize, oh, they're gonna mess it up because it's all tied in with Doctor Strange and the multiplex of madness and the WandaVision TV show, because they're gonna have it all tied into another universe where they're just gonna keep going with this crap that they've been doing in the last few movies. That's been so. Yeah, it looks cool. Yeah, it looks cool, but it's not. I doubt it's gonna be cool because they're. It's gonna be one of these things where you just gotta. They don't know what they're doing. Here's one that's not bagged and boarded, so we can kind of look in it. We'll see. We'll see what they do. Here's a cool ad for this Batman 80-page giant. There are people out there today, Wednesday, July 12th, buying new comic books. Ooh, this this book, there's a whole wrap. They call this a wrap that's not attached to the staple. The other one that's bagged and boarded there is in better shape. Anyway, it's an okay reading copy. This one's beat. It's got all kinds of problems. Here's an ad that would never run in a comic book today.
We have conducted all logical investigative steps and interviewed.
Yeah. Well, every so often I shave my beard to remind myself that I look like an old washerwoman without it. And then last night I'm walking around, my wife says, "Are you angry about something? Are you bothered by something?" And it's like, no, I'm in a good mood. And she's because I guess with my beard shaved, and you can see these jowls, this flesh hanging down like I'm Vito Corleone or something, like fat pig that I am. It just, I guess it makes me look grumpy and unhappy. But if you see the reason old people like me grow that stupid goatee is to hide this stuff from being out of shape and having the flesh hang down. So there's no real hope, you know. You grow out this white beard, and then it's like, it's just like, look, mommy, an old man. Look how old he is. I swear. Well, I'll shave it, and then but I still have gray hair up here. Can't do nothing about that, man. Here's Adventure 371. This is, okay, when did it happen? It happens. It happens. Oh, you know, I had 3 copies of that adventure with the pets. Where does it happen? Okay. Here, it still looks Silver Age. It's still, I don't know how to, maybe you don't see it, but it's still Silver Age. Still kind of comic booky, right? And then this one that I apparently have 3 copies of, just because I love the Super Pets so much. To have them all on one cover is great. Okay, and then here, it's starting to look a little darker. Do you see the difference? Still got a purple background and everything, but it's like, and the characters are drawn slightly more realistically. There's less of a cartoonish edge to it. Here, definitely, do you see the difference? This has got to be Neil Adams. If this isn't Neil Adams, it's someone imitating Neil Adams. Anyway, when Neil Adams showed up at DC, and when his influence was felt, everything started to become a little more photorealistic and less cartoonish. And I'm not saying I dislike that, but it's a sudden shift that you see. We're still in the 12-cent era. Maybe about 1968, I think, is when that happened. You definitely see it here. This is more... it's just the style of drawing changes. Ew, this one's in bad shape. I could certainly upgrade issue 374. That looks bad. 376. This is kind of what comic books look like when I first became aware of them. Well, I probably first saw comics laying around in my brother's rooms when I was real little. I was born in '65. So these late 60s books are the ones I first remember seeing on seeing. And then that's 380. So somewhere between 380 and 387, the Legion of Superheroes leaves Adventure Comics and it becomes a Supergirl comic. And the Legion of Superheroes they don't stop publication of it. They just go to Superboy, and then it becomes, the Superboy comic becomes Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. So this is 390. This is most little girls love horses, so the idea that the horse can just turn into a guy, and it's just it's wonderful. It's a romance comic. It's an all romance issue. So this is probably an issue that was bought not by as many little boys as girls. Supergirl. They've always had trouble selling this comic to boys. They also kept trying to change her outfit. They thought maybe if we change her outfit, we'll get people to buy the comic. This is issue 400. Here's 409. That seems like a pretty impractical costume to use in fighting crime. Okay, so we're getting real close to what I consider the Bronze Age of comics. Comics have gone up to 15 cents. They stay 15 cents for a couple years, and then they realize we're going to have to raise our price to 20 cents. And DC and Marvel both raised their price instead to 25 cents, but give you a thicker book, and it, and they say only 25 cents bigger and better. In other words, we're going to give you more pages, like 52 pages instead of 32. But you're going to pay a little bit more, but you're going to get more book. And kids didn't respond to that. Marvel quickly switched back to 20 cents. And then they could say, hey, we're only 20 cents now. And look, our competitor is 25 cents. And then DC stuck with it for a little while, and then they switched back their page count and switched down to 20 cents. So it's a switcheroo. It's like when, Biden stopped the pipeline and did all this insanity that caused, they were doing it on purpose. It wasn't insanity. It was actually evilness. They're trying to destroy our whole country, basically, to bring us down. But anyway, they brought the gas prices up. Then they bring them down a little bit. You say, look, we brought the gas prices down. Yeah, but they're not back down below $2 like they were when Trump was president. You brought them down to $3.15 from like $3.75 or $4. But we still remember that a couple of years ago, it was $1.75 or $1.80. Now, her costume, now she's decided to cover up completely and get somewhat Victorian. Wow. There's a lot going on in this cover that yeah, buddy. Here's 415. Here's every issue she switches her outfit out. It's like Barbie. That Barbie movie had its premiere the other day. It's got some of the initial press is really positive for it. It comes out in a few weeks, I guess. And that Aquaman movie is coming out at Christmas. What else? Anyway, I'm eager to see Sound of Freedom. This was a great book. Bob Hope, DC had published it since the 50s, but by the 60s, Bob Hope was getting to be, man, I'm sure he was in his 60s in the 1960s, and it's hard to market Bob Hope to kids when he's your parents' generation or your grandparents' generation. So they put monsters in it, and this hip mod kind of musician there named Super Hip, as I recall. So they're at the cafe Go Go Ghoul. So you got all the monsters. Bob Hope basically became a monster book. Now, the Comics Code Authority said you can't have the living dead in comic books, and that started in 1955. So you couldn't have vampires and werewolves unless they were, you could get away with it if they were based on literary works, if you're doing Classics Illustrated, Bram Stoker's Dracula, or Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Or if they're cartoonish. You could get away with it if they're cartoonish. But living dead were forbidden. In '68, there was a challenge to the Comics Code because Stan Lee did this story in Spider-Man where some kid jumped off a building and killed himself on LSD or something. And the code said we cannot have code. The code says you cannot have drug use in a comic. And he said, nah, this is an anti-drug. We're trying to teach kids the consequences of drugs. So to heck with you, I'm going to publish this issue without the seal, and it sold fine. And the code got a little. Oh, I've got 2 copies of this one. The code got scared. They realized we're losing our power, so they changed the rules and allowed the undead and more horror into comics. And then that's when there was an explosion of. Dang. I'm sorry. There was an explosion of horror in comics. I'm just realizing I don't. Wow. What? I'm just realizing my only copy of this fantastic issue. Someone said, what would be something you would put on a wall? This issue I'd put on a comic wall, but all I have is one that went through a fire. Clearly, this was rescued from a fire. And, man, I've got to get this issue in better condition. So, anyway, that's a fantastic cover. Fantastic. Bob Hope. Yeah, I've got to make sure I have all these Bob Hopes. Jerry Lewis was kind of the same way. There was a Jerry Lewis comic, and although Jerry Lewis wasn't as old in the 1960s and was still making movies, they still were trying to sell that comic to kids with... they had some monsters in Jerry Lewis, but they had... They would bring superheroes into the Jerry Lewis comic and various other things. There's so many things that you just can't talk about on YouTube. It's just like, I realize I better not talk about that. Yeah, this is fantastic. Yeah, it just became a monster comic, basically. Monsters, hot rods, and this British invasion-looking musician, and then Bob Hope. And then, you know, it's this cartoonish art, and then at a certain point, you even see the Neil Adams influence on this comic, and Neil Adams will actually do some covers here in a little bit. This one I've got several copies of. I think I've got one on the comic spinner rack in the other room. Which, we ought to look at that comic spinner rack. So I was talking about spinner racks the other day, and how the new ones, they make new ones, but you can tell the difference between the new and the old. There's Bob Hope 104. Okay. You start to see a little bit of the difference in the art style, a little bit. It's getting a little darker. Oh, another copy of the same one. Oh my goodness. That looks like stuff you see on TikTok nowadays. You know, I forgot you know, if I saw this on in a comic store, I would buy it, because I completely don't remember having this issue. That's why it's good to get these out and look at the covers from time to time, because you're going to buy them again. Here's where it gets dark and Neil Adams-like, and I think I'm almost 100% sure this is a Neil Adams cover, but you just see the difference in how DC is trying to compete with Marvel. Because Marvel had Steranko and DC had Neil Adams, and Marvel got Neil Adams too, actually, in the X-Men comic. But these were two kind of new generation artists that were, oh, another copy of the same issue. New generation artists that were that just kind of came out of nowhere and updated the look of things there for a little while. Oh, we're already into Jerry Lewis. Yeah, okay. I didn't even, I didn't even notice. When did we change over to Jerry Lewis? Okay, so Adventures of Bob Hope. Okay, Adventures of Jerry Lewis. Okay, so you're wondering why is it that you had Adventure Comics followed by Bob Hope followed by Jerry Lewis? Because I file it by the title. You see there in tiny print, The Adventures of Jerry Lewis. Technically, the name of this is The Adventures of Jerry Lewis, and the other one was The Adventures of Bob Hope. So I filed them after Adventure Comics. Is that madness? I'll let you decide. This Nazi camp guard guy is all over these comics. He's like the running villain. I'm not sure if you're allowed to say that word on YouTube. That's why I was kind of saying, gee, I don't know what I can say on YouTube. Here's the 100th issue of Jerry Lewis. What I need to get are some of the DC Rudolph books. It's 108. All I have are the Treasury editions, but I don't have any of the original Rudolph books from the 50s. There would be an issue that would come out every Christmas. So there aren't that many of them. Here's another copy. This is when it starts to get dark. About this time, I guess. Are these in order? No, I don't think this one's in order. Someone put a 15-cent sticker over the number. This needs to go back earlier. Okay, wonderful. Here's All-American Men of War, but I think I'm going to pull this because I was putting all the DC war books in a separate box. Probably not smart, but I'm going to do that. This is number 97. Okay. Here's Amazing Adventures number 1, The Inhumans and the Black Widow. Some people would consider this Bronze Age. I don't. They're wrong. I don't know. They could be right if they want. I mean, who cares? I don't. I live in my own little world. I don't use the term key issue. I don't like that word. I'd like for. Would you guys tell me below when people started using the word key issue instead of origin issue, or this is an important issue? When did key issue, key collector app? When did all the? It's like I don't like people coming into the hobby and changing the jargon. To me, in the way comic collectors talked in the mid-1970s, that's the way I like it. I like good condition, fair condition, fine, whatever, mint condition. Instead of 9.2, it's not the Olympics. I don't like that. Just, it's very good plus. That's fine with me. I don't know. Okay, it's a 3.4. It would be a 3.5, but this is a 3.4 because of this spine tick here. It's like, I'm not into that. Oh, well, my point is, as long as this corner box is here, instead of the Marvel Comics group strip going across, I consider it Silver Age. Once the Marvel Comics group goes there, that is when the Bronze Age starts for me. I know people say Conan the Barbarian #1, that's when the Bronze Age begins. Yeah, maybe, but Conan the Barbarian #1 has the corner box, so I consider it still be Silver Age. And that's just the way it is in my little happy world. And if I had any comics that were in Seduction of the Innocent, I certainly wouldn't call them SOTI comics. That's the Seduction of the Innocent was a book in the. I had to show you that. It's a book from the early 50s, written by Dr. Frederick Wertham, German psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, that said comic books were causing kids to become juvenile delinquents, criminals, sociopaths, psychopaths, whatever. And it was read by a lot of parents and teachers, and there was a crusade against comics. There were book burnings, and then the same people that I'm watching here on TV, except a different generation of these people, met, and that's when they came up with this. The comic industry came up with this code to self-regulate, so they wouldn't have Congress getting in, and regulating them. This is number 4. Especially since they were all probably underworld figures, so they didn't really want Congress sniffing around, so they just cleaned up their books. Okay, here's Neil Adams' influence at Marvel, 6. What is this? Oh, okay. Huh. It looked almost real for a second, but it's not real. This is a J.C. Penney reprint, Amazing Adult Fantasy, number 13. If I took it, it's got the price tag and everything, but just looking at it in a bag, it looks pretty real. But when you take it out, all the ads inside are early 1990s ads. There'll be a Stridex acne pad ad on the back. It's clearly not real. My oldest Amazing Spider-Man is 22. I have a pretty bad collection of Spider-Man, even though I love Spider-Man. I never could afford these books when I started to go in the first comic store that opened in the summer of 1977, the same summer Star Wars came out. A comic store opened in my town, Arlington, Texas, called Lone Star Comics. I actually would walk there, and it was more than a few miles away, or I'd get a ride, and the only way I could afford these early Spider-Man books was to get them in Marvel Tales. And I started getting early Fantastic Fours, Doom Patrols, Metal Men comics. I could afford those, but I never could afford the Spider-Mans. They were always pricey. Not pricey like they are now. The comic book price guide, the Overstreet guide in the summer of 76, the year before, listed Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man, at $75 in mint. But that was a lot of money. This has a small tear on the back cover. I got this, I think, for half price. This one was the earliest one I ever saw. I got this a few years ago because this friend of mine, I went to his house in like 1974 in San Antonio, and he had this book there next to his bed that had been handed down maybe from an older brother, and then he had some comics that had been handed down from his mother that were from the early 50s. He had a G.I. Joe, not the G.I. Joe of today, but the G.I. Joe from the Korean War era, the blonde guy that wore a flower in his helmet that was always beating the heck out of the enemy soldiers while smiling. So that was 32. Yeah, I'd love to get more of these. I hear people say there's very few Amazing Spider-Man comics under issue 100 that people have it encased in plastic. But it's hard to find issues out in the wild, as they say, that haven't been slabbed. But these aren't going to get slabbed. Here's 55. Here's 57. There's a movie that's going to be a big bomb coming out soon with, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I was thinking. My mind's. I was. I was thinking of another cover where Craven is dropping down onto Spider-Man, but it's not that cover. I looked. This is Kazar. Some people call him Kazar, whatever. That's 57. Here's 58. Oh, this is the guy that. What is this idiot's name? This guy thought that the island, that Puerto Rico might capsize because it's an island if we put too many soldiers on it. He thinks islands are like inflatable toys in a pool that if they'll just flip over. This is 59. This is a really great cover. This is 62. This is one I got at Lone Star Comics because what they used to do, and I don't know if it's going to pick up in the light. Do you see next to the 2 in 62? Yeah, they wrote in pencil on there, very good. I don't know if you can see it right next to the 2. There's a V and a G underneath it. That's how they would put the condition on the comic. They would write it on the comic with pencil. So I have that on my first Black Panther, Fantastic Four. What is it, 52? Here's 64. This one, the cover is detached. I got this recently from Gotham City Comics. It looks good to me. That's another new term. It presents well. That's and it's got some kid wrote their name on it, but the kid wrote their name in such a way that it looks like an artist's signature. It looks. I swear. This kid's signature looks like Bill Everett's signature or something. It's, but this is a John Romita cover. So anyway, here's 65. 66. MAGA Republican. Shut up. 68. 82. Whenever I found these over the years, I've gotten them, but I have not found many over the years that were anywhere close to being affordable. 86. That's the Black Widow. 87. 88. 94. Oh, this is the one I was telling you about. This is the one where, see, this guy is taking drugs and has jumped off the building, and Spider-Man tries to save him, but they think, I guess, Spider-Man's getting away. They think he threw him off the building. Anyway, notice there's no comics code stamp. I didn't get enough sleep last night. My brain just went woof. 96. Anyway, this is the issue that's responsible for all those monster comics I grew up with, because if the comics code hadn't been weakened by this drug issue, then the monsters never would have come back. The zombies, the monsters, Dracula, all those characters that I loved as a little kid, Ghost Rider, all that would not have happened if not for this. So that's how it works. Oh, and then this is a fake Spider-Man annual, because instead of 25 cents, it says what, $7.99? Ridiculous. But you know, Bidenomics, right? This is a real Spider-Man annual number 3. And here's another fake one of number 5. But it looks real. It's got the 25-cent price tag. Yeah, but you look at the back, it's got the Stridex ad. So this is one of that set of JCPenney reprints. And the cool thing about these is you can put them on your comic spinner rack, and it makes the spinner rack look very authentic. But they are fake. Here's number 6. It's a real one. Then I don't have 7. Here's number 8. Also real. And here is a Mexican Spider-Man comic. El asombroso hombre araña. No puedo ocultarlo más de la pinga, la carrera puto del araña atormentado. Y solamente hice eso porque yo soy el hombre puto. Entonces, el gato de la biblioteca está en los gatos. Okay, here's number 94. Oh, look, it's a modern comic. It's $7. That's probably equivalent to 25 cents. I don't know. That's probably pesos, whatever. This is not old. I think it's actually came out in 1982. It's a reprint of a Silver Age comic. Look at this pinup. Every young boy wants this pinned up on their wall. Alerta! Ya viene, ya viene, ya viene. What does ya viene mean? I'll have to ask my wife. Spanish is their first language, but I don't know. Anyway, this is a reprint of Spider-Man, ladies and gentlemen. But oh, in the 1970s, they were doing this Spider-Man reprint comic, right? And they're reprinting the American comic, and then they killed off Gwen Stacy, and the Mexican publisher said, "Hey, Gwen Stacy, the readers love Gwen Stacy. Why did you kill her off?" And they said, "Can we get our own artist and keep doing the comic, but with Gwen Stacy alive?" They got permission, and so in Mexico, Gwen Stacy, the stories are the same until the Gwen Stacy story, and then it departs and goes off a different trajectory where Gwen Stacy stays alive, and they come up with their own villains or reuse American villains, and they make their own stories, and those comics are very sought after. You can see them on, people have done YouTube stories about them. People also have clamored for someone to translate those into English and put them out in a book so we could read this version of reality where Gwen Stacy lives, which to me, I wish she had lived. I thought that was stupid to kill her off. Stan Lee thought the same thing, but he was no longer in charge at that time of those books. Angel and the Ape. You don't see Angel and the Ape around very often. Yep. And number 8, you can tell it's not selling well, so they bring in the monsters, because that's what would sell the comic, monsters. or dinosaurs, you know, dinosaurs, purple covers, um, um, put monsters on the cover, whatever. And of course, over at Marvel, whenever a comic wasn't doing well, they'd bring in Spider-Man to team up with that hero to kind of help them out. Man, is this really my only copy of Anthro, the Caveman comic, #2? I should have more of that. I'm ashamed. I thought I had more. Aquaman is a comic I always loved. Aquaman #16. Here's #22. You know, for whatever you want to say about what's her face that was married to Johnny Depp, I mean, the actress does look like her. Aquaman doesn't look anything like that guy, whatever his name is, with the beard. Oh well. Why can't I think of his name? I guess it doesn't matter that much to me. They had him play Conan the Barbarian once in a movie that no one remembers, and I guess he was in Game of Thrones. All right, we're almost done with this box. Here's Aquaman 46. Here's a coverless Aquaman. #50 something. My eyes get worse every day. I've also got this ring light in my eyes. It doesn't make it easier. I've got to pull some comics to show on tonight's 4-Color Fossils that comes on tonight, 7 o'clock Central, on Graphic Man's channel, and I don't know what to show. I'll figure something out. They always have amazing stuff to show. Here's where they get all fancy with the covers. It's really kind of cool. But this is during that dark period where DC kind of changes their look. You can kind of tell it's darker, it's more Neil Adams-like. Okay, so how about that? Amazing. The foot soldiers. Here's more Aquaman. How about that? Is California sinking? That's a great cover. Look at this guy. He's like shaking his fist in anger. Or is he trying to get to the surface of the water? It's almost like, curse you! You put me underwater. Okay, Astonishing Tales, #2, featuring Kazar and Dr. Doom.
I do think that the appointment of the special counsel has accelerated the investigation of the former president's misconduct.
3.
As a positive step for the department and for the country, so we can get resolution to this. But likewise, with Mar-a-Lago, notwithstanding the protests of my colleagues,
4.
there were repeated requests by the archives to get those documents back from the former president. And then when those were unsuccessful,
6.
there was a grand jury subpoena that was administered. And when that was unsuccessful, and only when that was unsuccessful, and there was evidence that the former president was still
7.
reporting highly classified materials, did the FBI go to this step of a search warrant? That was more than a year and a half before the initial requests. This was
#8.
anything but a rush to judgment.
Boy, that thunderstorm this morning was something else.
So,
The power was out, I guess, an hour. I went and drove around and saw all these big branches that had fallen. They'd closed off a street because of a big branch. Wait, didn't I just show you this one? See, this is what happens when you don't refresh your memory of what you own. You wind up buying a book twice.
I want to thank you for your stewardship during this incredibly difficult time. I don't think there's been a more difficult time than
Oh, I love the Atom,
and notwithstanding.
and I don't have many Atom comics.
None of them go to your integrity or
Ad on the back.
to the country. And I,
What is wrong with me? They could. Atom didn't sell, so they thought, well, we'll bring in Hawkman, and we'll combine him. This is where the art starts to change, and it gets a little more dark. Atom and Hawkman, number 44. Right about when comics switched to 15 cents, that's when the covers got a little darker. Oh, there's an unbagged, unboarded one. Number 39. There's the Land of the Giants model kit. That was a fun show. This interplanetary, it's like in the future where, you know, you can, instead of flying in a jet to another country, you can fly to another planet. So it's like a commercial jet airliner kind of thing, as I recall. And they wind up on a planet that's just like Earth, but they're tiny, and everyone's a giant. But it's almost like Earth, except it's more authoritarian. They speak English. It's like a clone of Earth, except it's more 1984 like, more kind of like today. Beautiful art.
But domestic violent extremism cuts across the spectrum from the racially motivated violent extremism, militia violent extremism, anarchist.
Problem is, didn't Trump appoint Ray? Here's a tank you could buy for $7. Okay. Oh, we're coming to the Avengers, comics that I've shown multiple times on here. My earliest Avengers is a reprint that was in the Book and Record set. There was a Book and Record set that came out about 1966. So this is a Silver Age comic. It's just a very early reprint, and it looks like the original except the ads, and it doesn't have a price on the cover. It was just inserted inside the jacket of the record, and you'd read along with it to this record that you would think would be amazing because it's from the 1960s, but trust me, the DC records that came from Leo the Lion, Leo was the children's imprint of children's records. They did the DC. The acting, everything is even worse than Power Records was in the 70s. It's really bad. It's like, and they did a Spider-Man and a Fantastic Four. They did this Avengers, and they did Thor, and so there are reprints of like Spider-Man #1, Fantastic Four #1, the first Thor, like that. It's just the records. You can listen to the records on YouTube, and someone will probably have one that matches up the panels, so you can read along with it, just like you were a kid back then. But trust me, it sounds bad. I have two that came from and I have the record set. I just didn't keep the book with the record, so I wound up with two of those. They have some value, but not like the real. That's the first time Captain America came back in the Silver Age. Came back. Okay, so this is one of those facsimile replica fake books. This is Avengers #8. Came out a few months ago. They're reprinting the first Kang because everyone was excited about Kang because he was going to be a character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Then he came out, and it's like, well, I guess, yeah. It's like, no, yeah, I guess he's okay, but the movie he's in is terrible, and he's in a terrible Loki TV series, and then the actor starts beating up his wife or girlfriend or something, and they say, well, we're probably going to have to get a new Kang now because he was bad, and I don't know. Okay, this is my first real Avengers Number 13 from 1966, because someone wrote 1966 on it. That makes it real easy.
It sounds like you were trying to do it in Richmond, Virginia.
No, sir. No,
You
sir.
weren't? This didn't happen? You can assure us that this didn't happen?
That product did not result
Um,
in any investigative action.
Here's Avengers number 14.
You know what the motivation for this was? Why would they even think about doing this? You know what the motivation was?
Well, again, I think that's what our internal review.
There's that little ad for the Mary Marvel Marching Society, the fan club that they started at Marvel, emulating the fan club that EC had, the EC Fan Addict Club in the early 50s. EC had started a fan club. And in between the 50s and 1966, or did the MMMS might have started in 65, I'm not sure, but in between, I'm not sure if Archie had a fan club or if that came later, but having a fan club, making the kids reading your comic feel like they're insiders, because they're most certainly probably outsiders at school, although reading comics was more of a, here's 15, something that a lot of kids did back then. It still was, you read comics and talked about comics too much, you were kind of branded a nerd or a geek, whatever. You weren't cool. Well, I don't know if it was so much that way in the 60s, but I wasn't around in the 60s, because it seems like that was just something all kids did in the 60s. It might have changed, but it certainly was that way when I was a kid in the 70s. But if you make the kids feel like they're part of something, that they belong, and that's what Stan Lee did by giving all the people that worked on the comics, you know, Jazzy, Johnny Romita, you know, Rascally Roy, you know, Smilin' Stan Lee, by giving them names that sounded like baseball players. It made, and the kids knew the names of everybody that worked on this comic and that comic, and they didn't, you know, they hear Steve Ditko's leaving, you know, it's just like their favorite baseball player's been traded to another team. The more that kids become invested in it, the more they want to buy every single title that's on the rack. Here's a purple cover. It's kind of like DC would do the purple covers. There's Marvel doing it. The colors on these 60s comics are kind of muted. Marie Severin was doing the coloring, and she had worked on the EC Comics line doing the coloring, and Stan Lee would constantly tell her, make the colors brighter, make them more like pop art, and she would say, oh yeah, and then she wouldn't do it, and then some new person would get hired, and Marie Severin would be showing them the ropes, and she would say, don't listen to him, do what I say, we're doing it right. And when these, like these, wait, I guess I have two copies of this. I'm not sure which one of these was, I don't know. I've got two copies. This one's a little more beat up. When they reprinted some of these comics in the 70s, when Marie Severin was not doing the art, say you take this, you know, see how the art's kind of dark? When they reprinted the art for the covers on like Marvel Double Feature or Marvel Triple Action or whatever, they would make the colors much brighter in the reprints. And that's the way Stan Lee originally wanted it in the 60s. But then we wouldn't have had this beautiful art. So you could brighten up Captain America's suit and make, you know, or the Minotaur there. But of course Marie Severin was right. Marie Severin is one of my idols, by the way. I think she's one of the greatest artists of all time, and is very, people just don't know about her, and I think that's wrong, you know, just because in that case it probably is because she's a woman that, you know, it's just like, I don't care about her. No, she made things great. See this cover here? You could brighten it up, but who would want it to be brightened up? It's perfect the way it is.
Over the past couple weeks, he has doxed the addresses of a former special agent connected to the Hunter Biden case.
You could compare this cover to the reprint of it in the 70s and see how they changed up the colors.
The name, which I will not say, of an assistant U.S. attorney who worked in the Hunter Biden case, that she will answer for her crimes.
Okay, we're up to Avengers 22. Oh, when did they do this? Let's see. Every time I look at these, I'm with 19. See how they change it from Marvel Comics Group to Marvel Pop Art Productions? And we're up to, that was 19. Now we're up to 22. It's still Marvel Pop Art Productions. That was done for a brief while, like in 1960. It was done for a brief while because Stan Lee thought, you know, we're making art. We're making pop art just like Andy Warhol. And that was 22. By 23, they are back to Marvel Comics Group.
I know that because one of the things I committed to doing early in my tenure was every time an officer anywhere in the country is shot and killed in the line of duty,
Here's 24.
I personally call that sheriff or that chief on behalf of the FBI, express our support and condolences.
Seems like there was something I was wanting to tell you guys. Well, yeah, don't watch season 4 of Marvelous Miss Maisel. It's disappointing. This is 25. 26.
Chairman, I've counted in this hearing
Another 26. How did I do this?
in fact, in the chairman's opening statement, he said that
Well, none of these are my childhood copies. But some of these, because I was, learning to walk when these came out. But sometimes when I have duplicates, it's because I bought one over the years in my collecting, and then one was given to me in this box that I was gifted by one of my good friends that I'd like to have on here as a guest soon through StreamYard. This good friend of mine just said, hey, come over here. I'm going to give you my whole Avengers collection. I'm going to hold on to some of these books, but I don't want to sell them at Heritage. I want to just give them to someone that will appreciate them because I just, so he was buying these in the 60s or through Robert Bell. A lot of them still had the Robert Bell bags. See, this one, I remember, I think I put mine in front. This is one I bought in the 90s when I was living in Longview, Texas at a comic store. And then this is the one he gave me. I think that's the way I normally do it. I normally put if I have two of something, if one of them's a childhood copy, I'll put that one in the front. I think that's how I do it. 28. See how the colors are muted? I mean, you could brighten up Giant Man's costume. You could brighten up everything and make everything bright and garish. But Marie Severin toned down the color. Just a stylistic choice. 29. My older brothers did not buy Marvel comics. They only bought DC. They didn't like Marvel. They were older than me. Yeah, my older brothers were older than me. How about that? Man, I sound worse than Biden. They were older than me by about 10 years. That's what I was going to say. The friend of mine that gave me these Avengers, let's see, he's about 7 years older than me. So he wasn't quite as old as they were. So he was buying some of these off the rack, and then he would send off to Robert Bell to get the ones that he was missing.
all sorts of weapons. Remember that committee hearing that testifying that night?
There's 33. What's fun is when some of these stories get adapted into the Captain America cartoon, the 1966 Marvel Superheroes cartoon. I love that cartoon. 34.
Stevenson reported
Okay, so that must have been one I got,
protest crowd was filled with federal agents.
and then this must have been the one from his collection.
His assertion. Would you agree with him that it was filled with
35.
agents on January 6th?
I would really have to see more closely exactly what he said and get the full context to be able to evaluate.
How many agents?
36.
Agents or
See, you could,
resources?
a different colorist could paint all this machinery that's being wrecked in the background. They could kind of, instead of making it a big mass of gray, they could add color to that. There's a lot of what a colorist does is it really changes the mood of a cover. That must have been one I collected on my own.
Again, I'm not sure that I
This must have been his copy.
I'm sure there were undercover agents
I find that kind of remarkable.
38. Floating heads.
You don't know whether there were undercover federal agents, FBI agents in the crowd or in
39.
January 6th.
I say that because I want to be very careful. There have been a number of court filings related to some of these topics.
Ooh, this is important.
I'm sure that I stick with it.
I understand that, but I thought I heard you say you didn't know whether there were FBI agents or
Oh, there's one without a cover.
human sources in the Capitol or in the vicinity of January 6th. Did I misunderstand you? I thought that's what you said.
40.
Specifically to undercover agents.
Yeah. And so are you acknowledging that there were undercover agents?
As I sit here right now,
They kind of exaggerated the Submariner a bit.
Any assets? Did you have any assets present that day? Or in the crowd?
when it comes to what you're calling assets, or what we would call confidential human sources, that's a place where, again, I want to be careful, as much as I said in response to an earlier question.
42.
There are court filings that I think speak to this, and I'm happy to make sure we get to you.
He's being really cagey with the answer to this question.
I can better answer the questions than I can as a civilian.
43, the Red Guardian, another character ruined by the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Well, he wasn't ruined. I mean, the comics are still great. They can't ruin these comics. You just have to wipe from your mind that those movies even exist.
Specifically, you said the FISC found no misconduct. Yet 3 months later, the Inspector General found
44.
widespread problems in FBI's FISA applications, raising serious questions about the FBI review process.
I'm really kind of in a quandary what to show on this, this program. If you guys would give me some advice, I would love it. Stuff you want to see. 45. I want to do the show. It's just I'm kind of running out of ideas. 46.
Reduced it down to 119,000, over 200,000 total, but 119,000 discrete Americans. It just doesn't seem like
47, which is why I'm showing these books again for the third or fourth time. 7. Oh, I figured it out about 47. Remember I've told you about the 47 pops up in TV and movies a lot. There's some... I was reading about that, and it's because there's some college, university in California that has a 47 society. And because someone wrote something at the college about how number 47 pops up more often in our culture and movies. Something they wrote a paper about it, and then they formed a 47 society. It's like an inside joke. Is it Cornell? Is that in California? Somewhere in California, you can look it up. 47 society. And all the people that graduate from that school, if they go on to Hollywood or whatever. A lot of times they'll put 47 into scripts just as an inside joke. They're kind of winking at their fellow alumni from that school. But in that Star Trek The Next Generation, they started putting 47. Someone would mention 47 in every episode after a certain season. And a friend of mine would always he told me first about this in the 80s. It's like 47 happens in all these great movies, because he was a huge movie person, and he wound up going to Hollywood, working out there, and so 47. I was going to tell you that story, but now I can't remember the name of the college. But you can do your own research. 50.